So Hezbollah says that they've destroyed 40 Israeli tanks in southern Lebanon so far, which doesn't really make sense. I mean, even if you're going exclusively off of Hezbollah footage, which we'll look at some here in a moment, or their statements, it's still pretty hard to get to 40 total. We just don't have any evidence to support that. What we do have evidence to support are the multiple Israeli raids being conducted into Lebanon as well as Syria, capturing key individuals. So let's dive into it. This first one here just came out a couple days ago. It's CCTV footage that was leaked publicly, so this was not first released by Israel, but it shows the Israeli Navy Shayetet 13 commando unit that carried out a raid in northern Lebanon a couple days ago, capturing a Hezbollah official named Ahmad Amhaz, who supposedly has a fair amount of knowledge when it comes to Hezbollah's naval capabilities. Now, a couple notes there real quick. First, this occurred in Batroun, which is way up north, outside of what's generally believed to be Hezbollah-controlled territory. And there's a couple different ways to read that. One is that Hezbollah probably didn't have the defensive capabilities set up to defend against something like this, which is why Israeli forces just sort of walked in and walked out without having to fire a shot. In fact, it sounds like they took a speedboat to shore, offloaded, patrolled inland, picked up the target, and were able to exfil without any real issues at all. The second thing to read into here kind of suggests that Hezbollah is still able to operate relatively freely outside of their controlled territory in the south without any concern of UNIFIL or the Lebanese government taking any real action against them. Now, when we're talking about Hezbollah's naval capabilities, don't think of ships. Think about things that could do damage to ships. So I'm going to use a graphic put out by the IDF a couple weeks ago, I think it was, showcasing the locations that they eventually struck that they believed housed some of these anti-ship missiles utilized by Hezbollah. This is what we're talking about when you hear Hezbollah's Navy. And it hasn't played a major role in the war so far. I don't think we've seen any of these actually utilized. I could be mistaken there, but there's a couple reasons for that. And one, the major reason, is that Israel is aggressively targeting any location where these might have been stored, as we've seen play out in recent weeks. So one of the reasons it appears that Israel went after this very dangerous mission to land forces in northern Lebanon to pick up this man, Ahmad Amhaz, was likely to gain further intelligence on where additional naval capabilities like anti-ship missiles are located so they can target those in future operations. Now, of course, there's still very much an active war going on further south in Lebanon against their northern border with Israel. And this is some interesting footage. We haven't seen a lot like this really come out so far. My understanding is that this is 2-week-old footage, but it just came out, was just released, and it shows Israel capturing a local Hezbollah commander in southern Lebanon named Hassan Akil Jawad, who in this video is shown being captured by the Israeli Golani Brigade. Now, it sounds like, and kind of reading between the lines here, he was found in a tunnel alongside a couple other Hezbollah fighters, but it's not clear if there was any real firefight or engagement leading up to this, which I would have expected, especially when you're talking about a Hezbollah commander being taken captive. But it sounds more like, just kind of reading through the Israeli reports, that they just kind of stumbled across him as they moved through kind of clearing some of these tunnels. Now, it has been interesting in recent weeks. We're not seeing a lot of footage of Hezbollah forces engaging Israeli forces in southern Lebanon. They're kind of talking a big game, and we're seeing a lot of rocket launches and drones being fired into Israeli territory, and more on that in a second. But we're not seeing a lot of footage like this of, in this case, alive and captured or even dead Hezbollah militants. There's a lot of talk that quite a few of these guys, especially the lower-level commanders, decided to flee north after Nasrallah was killed. But that's not it. When we're talking about Israeli special operations raids, jumping over to Syria, Israeli commandos recently carried out a raid in southern Syria where they captured a Syrian man who was allegedly carrying out surveillance operations on the border on behalf of Iran. Supposedly, and that's the first-person view you're seeing right here. Supposedly, this was carried out in recent months with the footage just now being made public. And the man, Ali Suleiman al-Asi, was brought back to Israel and interrogated. Part of that was released publicly, so I'll play a clip here to give you an idea of what he was doing.
قعدنا على الساس اتفرج ليش منطقة قال لي منطقتك جيدة يعني استراتيجية نستفيد منها.
وشو فهمت بعدين؟
انه تابع لإيران قال لي باسم هي الشعبة يعني.
اوكي.
جلسة قال بس بدك تشتغل معنا. شو بدي اشتغل معك؟ فقط عبارة هالحدود. قال لي يا اخي هو المخابرات العسكرية بس وراها إيران يعني اللي فهمته انه تبعيته لإيران. يعني إيران كمان ما في واجهة هيك في غطاء اللي هو شعبة المخابرات. حده بمنطقة حدودية.
شو منطقة حدودية؟
لأنه حركة منطقة حدودية. مثلا مرة مرات قلنا له في دبابة امبارح الساعة كذا، دورية مرت الساعة كذا، تمام، ضمن هالكلام اللي صار.
All right, and then turning back to southern Lebanon, Israel is obviously still carrying out military operations. This is one of the first videos I've come across where it showcases clear civilian infrastructure being utilized for Hezbollah's military purpose. There was more of this throughout portions of the south, but we tended to see what were very clearly homes, sometimes mosques and other, residential type buildings that had, they were full of weapons and ammunition and firing points and tunnels and that kind of thing. But it didn't appear that there were clearly civilians living there. There may have been, right? And maybe they left. But this video is showing, we had a children's room there, a child's room there, and then you just take a turn and you've got boxes of ammunition, ATGMs, mines, rockets, all of that stuff. The kid was living here relatively recently, right? This is a family's home, and this is something that we saw a lot of in Gaza and continue to see a little bit of as Israel continues their clearance across the Gaza Strip. But as we see Israeli forces continue to push further into Lebanon, I would expect to see more of this, right? Less clearly defined military locations and more kind of a mix between military and civilian. And this was actually a pretty interesting find that I wanted to share. I'll pull up the picture once we get to it because it just kind of runs through it quickly. But Israeli forces found a cannon. Kind of looks like a recoilless rifle mounted inside of one of these Hezbollah tunnel networks facing out into Israeli territory. Looks, again, the picture does a better job, I think, than the videos here, but it shows, really kind of like what you'd expect in World War II in the Pacific Theater. I feel like this is the type of thing you saw dug into the hillside in places like Iwo Jima, Peleliu, or elsewhere. Now, Hezbollah is continuing to release footage. It's not a ton, and mostly what we're seeing right now are rocket launches and drones being launched into Israeli territory. But we just got this one a couple days ago. I mean, this is, look, when you're talking about the production value, it's very clear when something is like an action shot versus shot for propaganda. This is very clearly a propaganda film, right? We see every military do it. There's different kinds, whether it's helmet cam footage or aerial footage during action or something like this that's pretty clearly staged. So this was designed to showcase some of Hezbollah's underground tunnel networks, some of the larger ones that I don't believe Israel has been able to infiltrate or destroy so far. They've probably targeted some of the launch locations directly outside some of these and may know where some of them are. I wouldn't be shocked if they know the general location. But most of the tunnels, as we saw earlier in this video, most of the tunnels are pretty small, really just designed for an individual to move through. What you're looking at here are much larger tunnels with much larger rockets and missiles designed to kind of poke their head out, prevent them from being hit or even observed by Israeli aircraft overhead, and then, of course, launch these larger munitions into Israeli territory. Even as Israeli forces continue to move through southern Lebanon, this Hezbollah rocket, drone, and missile threat is still very much a real thing. And in fact, I want to make sure to get that across. There's been, at times, hundreds of munitions flying across the border into Israeli territory, and we have one right here detonating over a railroad track. This has become a regular part of this war. It never really stopped since October 8th, but in recent weeks, we've definitely seen an increase in Hezbollah munitions being launched at civilian locations, really, as well as military bases throughout northern Israel. But that's all I got for now. A little update on what we're seeing play out really in this war between Hezbollah and Israeli forces. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.